I'll never forget the way the book felt in my hands. My grandmother had passed away 6 months before, leaving behind an old Victorian house tucked away in the forests of upstate Vermont. We weren't close. She was always that quiet figure in the family who stayed in her attic room and rarely came down during visits. My parents didn't like to talk about her much, and to be honest, I was okay with that. She creeped me out. But her house, that was mine now. She left it to me specifically, no one else. Everyone else in the family was weirded out by that, and maybe I should have been too. But I was broke, jobless, and tired of living in a studio apartment above a 24-hour laundromat in Boston. So I moved in. It took 3 weeks of cleaning to even get to the attic. Dust blanketed every surface. Cobwebs hung like old lace from the rafters. But in the far corner of the room, tucked behind an old trunk and an oil lamp that hadn't worked in decades, I had to light it up and had to move things around so that I could settle in. When I was doing the whole cleaning and moving around, that was when I found it. A book. The leather was cracked, the pages yellowed with age. The cover had no title, just a strange symbol etched into it, something that looked vaguely like an eye inside a circle of thorns. Curious, I brought it downstairs. It was filled with handwritten notes, strange prayers, diagrams and annotations in my grandmother's spidery script. Some pages were brittle, others stained like they'd been handled often or exposed to something. I flipped to a page titled, "To Speak with What Listens." The prayer was simple, Latin-sounding. I couldn't recognize all the words, but something about it felt powerful. The margin had a note, "Only speak it with intention. They always listen." I should have stopped there, but I didn't. That night, out of boredom, or maybe not boredom, I was curious about something deeper, something I didn't want to admit. I lit a candle, sat in the living room, and read the prayer aloud. I felt it, like air being sucked out of the room, a pressure in my ears, a whisper, so faint I couldn't catch the words. And then, silence. I laughed. "Cool," I said. "Guess nothing happened." Then the candle blew out, and the door to the basement creaked open. Have you ever had that moment when your body realizes something's wrong before your mind catches up? That's what happened to me. As the basement door creaked open, every hair on my body stood up. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. "Hello?" I called out. "Is someone down there?" But there was nothing. I took a step forward. The door was half open now, revealing pure darkness below. I don't remember opening it that day. I rarely went down there. The light barely worked and it smelled like mold and something older. I should have called someone. I should have closed the door and burned the book. But instead, I descended. Each step down felt like it took an hour. The wooden stairs groaned beneath my feet. I used my phone flashlight to illuminate the way, sweeping the beam across shelves of dusty tools, jars with things in them, and old furniture draped in sheets. Then I saw it. In the center of the floor, a shape, not fully formed, shadowy, humanoid, but wrong. It didn't stand or crouch, it hovered, like it hadn't fully decided how to exist in this world. And then it spoke. "Thank you." I screamed and stumbled backward. My phone clattered to the floor. The thing didn't move closer, but I felt it stretch, like its presence expanded to fill every corner of the room. "You called me," it said, voice like wind through dead trees. "You spoke the prayer." "I didn't mean to," I stammered. "It was just a book." "You summoned." I backed away, groping for the stairs. What are you?" It tilted its head. "Once I was many things. Now I am bound, hungry, and made it to the top of the stairs and slammed the door shut. The candle was still unlit. The house was dark, but behind me, I could hear breathing, shallow, inhuman. That night, I didn't sleep. I locked every door, left every light on, and paced until dawn broke. The next morning, the basement was empty. No sign of the thing. But the book, when I opened it again, had changed. New words were scrawled on the once blank pages. I have answered. Now you must answer in return. I closed the book out of fear and didn't know the next step to take. I called my cousins and they told me I'm just hallucinating. Or maybe my grandma is still lingering in the house and wants to stay with me. They said maybe that's why she gave the house to me. But that didn't explain what happened next. It started moving around my house. At first, it was small things. I'd wake up and find fresh footprints in the dust near the attic. The lights would flicker at exactly 3:33 a.m. I'd find offerings left on my kitchen counter, black feathers, bits of bone, teeth. Once I found a single perfect fingernail, not mine. Then came high-pitched, childlike, not joyous, something worse. It would echo from room to room, especially in the dead of night. I once followed the sound and found every door in the hallway open. I know I closed them. I began sleepwalking. I'd wake up in strange places, once on the roof, barefoot, clutching the book. Another time I was standing in the middle of the road outside the house, arms raised to the sky, mouth moving as if reciting something. I'd find mud in my sheets, symbols drawn in ash on my walls. Reality began to crack. At the grocery store, I swore I saw the cashier's face melt into something else, something ancient, scaled. The manager came to help me when I started screaming. He said I'd been talking to an empty checkout lane. Reflections started showing things that weren't there, things that looked like me but blinked just a second too late. They'd smile even when I wasn't smiling. I covered all the mirrors after one night when the reflection didn't move at all while I walked away. I started seeing my grandmother. Not alive, not a ghost either, just flickers of her in the corner of my vision, sometimes seated in her attic rocking chair, sometimes peering at me from the darkened stairwell. Her mouth would move, but no sound would come out, and her eyes were always pleading, as if warning me. I began to lose time. I'd come to on the floor, hours gone. One time I woke up in the forest behind the house, barefoot and clutching the book. My hands were filthy. Something had been buried. When I went back later to dig where I had stood, I found nothing, just empty, disturbed soil. My dreams became blood-soaked memories that were not my own. Rituals in the attic, children standing in circles, chanting, and always the presence in the shadows, the one I summoned, watching, smiling. It showed me things, images of my grandmother performing rituals, lighting candles, tracing symbols in chalk, whispering prayers in a language I could barely comprehend. In one vision I saw her crying, her hand shaking as she crossed out a name in the book. My name. You owe me, it whispered in dreams and waking moments. One favour, one task. I didn't agree to anything, I shouted back, night after night. But eventually I stopped fighting it. Maybe it was the fatigue. Maybe it was the way reality seemed to bend around me now. Mirrors warping my reflection, clocks ticking backward, people on the street stopping to stare a second too long. Or maybe I just wanted to know. What do you want? I asked it, finally, fully awake, fully present. It appeared. Not in full, just a silhouette in the corner of my living room, dark. There is one who must be silenced, one who knows what should not be known. What do you mean? A man. He studies the veil. He seeks to banish us. You will stop him. You want me to kill someone? Silence. That was answer enough. I fought it. God, I fought it. I tore pages from the book. I buried it in the woods. I drove to the coast and threw it off a cliff. It came back the next day. On my kitchen table, dry, intact. You summoned, it reminded me. One task, complete it, and I will go. I spent days researching. I found the man. Professor Ellis Blackthorne, a folklorist in Maine, known for his work on ancient belief systems, recently published an article called Breaching the Curtain, a Guide to Ritual Containment. I drove 6 hours to his house. I didn't bring a weapon, just the book. He answered the door, tall, grey hair, eyes like he'd seen things he couldn't explain. I know what you've done, he said. I froze. You summoned it, didn't you, from that book? He offered me a seat with some coffee and said my grandmother tried the same thing, regretted it every day until she died. I told him everything. He listened. Then he sighed. There may still be time, but you must reject the bargain. Speak the banishing prayer. Seal the book in salt and ash. Will it work? He didn't answer and just looked with uncertainty. It's never been undone, but if we try together, maybe. We began the ritual that night. The professor drew ancient sigils on the floor with chalk and blood. I read the Latin while his voice trembled with age. The air thickened. The room warped. Lights exploded. The entity appeared monstrous and half-formed, shrieking in tongues. It lashed out, tearing at reality itself. I screamed, shielding my eyes as the shadows twisted and writhed. Professor Blackthorne shouted the last lines of the incantation, and then it all went white. When I woke, the house was on fire. Flames consumed the walls, licking at the sigils. I stumbled out, coughing, dazed. The professor was nowhere. Fire trucks arrived, sirens wailing. They never found a body. But I saw the thing, outside my motel window, watching, waiting. You tried, it said, but now you owe more. I don't know how much time I have left. Sometimes I catch people staring at me like they know. Birds die near me. Electronics short out. I see flashes of things reflected in puddles, hands clawing upward, eyes blinking in the depths. I carry the book everywhere now. I tried burying it again, burning it. It's been 4 months since the fire. The insurance company ruled it an accident caused by faulty wiring. They didn't ask about the chalk symbols on the floors, or why my hands were burned in a circular pattern that doesn't match any real-world injury. They paid out quickly, too quickly. I've moved 3 times since. Each time I hoped the entity would lose track of me, but it doesn't work that way. Wherever I go, it finds me. Sometimes through the book, sometimes through other people. My neighbour, Mrs. Holloway, was kind. She brought me soup when I first moved in. Said I looked too pale, too thin. Then one morning, she greeted me in the hallway with eyes completely black and whispered, "He still waits." I moved out the next day. I keep a journal now, not of my own thoughts, but of the strange occurrences. The echoes on the wall don't match the room layout. The way my TV flickers to show footage I never recorded. Rituals, blood, fire. My grandmother's face, screaming silently. I went back to the ruins of my grandmother's house once, just once. Everything was gone. burned to ash, except the attic door. Somehow it still stood upright in the middle of the rubble, covered in symbols I never drew. When I touched it, I heard my grandmother's voice. There's always a price. She knew. She tried to protect me. That's why she crossed out my name in the book. That's why she kept herself isolated. That's why she left the house to me, so no one else would find it. I have dreams of her sometimes. In those dreams, she stands at the edge of a vast black ocean, whispering warnings I can't quite hear. Sometimes I wake up with sea salt on my lips. I'm being worn down. I see it in the mirror. I'm becoming something else. Eyes a little darker, teeth just slightly too sharp. My shadow sometimes moves when I don't. I'm afraid of what I'll become if I don't stop it, but I don't know how. If this is the last thing I write, let it be a warning. When you hear the voice in the dark asking to be let in, don't answer. No matter how lonely you are, no matter how desperate, because it will offer you knowledge, power, connection, and all it asks in return is everything.